Republicans, and 1,219,000 of them. So there are another 855,000. So a little bit of what the Democrats gain here, the 114,000 they gain here, is going to be offset here. So it's going to be about a 100,000 vote margin out of these two groups that the Democrats have. Now, the election day, only 288,000 are in, and the Republicans are taking 74% of them. But we don't know how many more there are of those, because we know how many people voted by mail because we got their ballots and they've been tabulated, totaled up. We know virtually, we know exactly how many people voted early because those votes were toted up each day, but we don't know how many more there are of these. The Republicans need to get to 800,000 plus total election day turnout in order to have enough and keep that. Say it drops down to say 70%. At 800,000, they wipe out whatever advantage the Democrats have from their mail-in ballot numbers that are being reported now. So this is.
See that 1.4 points, 37,000 votes for Ossoff. 0.4 points. That's a 1 point difference now. That's a 25,000 vote difference between Warnock and Ossoff. I want to go look right now and see if there's one particular place where that's coming from. But again, incredibly close races. They're both leading right now. They're both ahead in the tally right now. But if there is a 25,000 vote difference between these candidates, it opens up the possibility of a split verdict here tonight. Again, not predicting anything, but I do think let's keep an eye on that. We're close to 2/3 of the vote in now, statewide.
Steve, before you go do that homework, can I ask you to look at a turnout issue?
Yes.
You're just talking about Paulding County and Cherokee County, which are important Republican-leaning counties, talking about those interesting margins, the differences between what happened in November, what's happening now. What can you tell us about turnout in Cherokee County and in Paulding County, given that we've got 95% of the vote in those two places?
Okay, and I am being told that I say when we put 95% up, we want to verify it. So they believe there are now 1 or 2 more precincts left in Paulding County. So this is not quite 100%, but you can do the math here. 54 and 29, 83 and 84. You're a little over 85,000 is your turnout in the November general election. You know, you're a bit north of 68,000 here. But I want to see what we get in those final 2 precincts before I hazard a guess. But that's potentially percentage-wise, you're potentially in a double-digit 15 plus point drop. But I want to see what these final two precincts could bump that up, and it might not be as dramatic. But right now, that would be a bit of a significant drop there.
Statewide vaccination plan. Our new Phase 1B will net.
So as soon as I was like 17 and a half and eligible to register, that was the first thing I did.
How different minority groups across the state are having an impact on
makes you do crazy things.
How you feeling?
To your career.
He saw Miller and this young girl talking, so we searched the neighborhood.
We still have absolutely nothing out of Forsyth County. Of the 159 counties in the state of Georgia, this is 11th in terms of population. We're not giant, but it is significant, and it is solidly Republican. If you go back to the 2020 presidential election, Mr. Sterling, who we just spoke to there, this is one of the counties where there were long lines, where a lot of people in line when the polls closed. The expectation is a lot of those people are Republicans. If you look at what happened in 2020, and if you look at Georgia's history, we still have absolutely nothing from Forsyth County. So if you are the Democrats and you're looking at a 7,000 vote lead there, and a 35,000 vote there, and you know there are a lot of Republican votes to come from Forsyth County, and then a modest number of Republican votes to come from other places like Coffee County here. Let's go back to 2020. You look at the presidential race. 6,000 votes. 6,000 votes, right? Not a giant number when you think about statewide, but when you're talking about the final hours in the final counties, and John Ossoff has a lead of 7,000 plus, right? We don't expect turnout to match the presidential level, but if the Republican candidates can pick up 3,000, 2,500, pick up, even if turnout is down, if your margins are like that, you pick up 2,000, 3,000, maybe more votes, then you're cutting into those margins from these Republican counties. So one of the things we're looking at now is where's the gray, right? Where's the gray? Where do we have nothing? Then we go around to see where do we still have 20% out and 15% out. But one of the big questions right now is where is the gray? And you have Appling County here, which, like Coffee County, is an overwhelmingly Republican county. So again, not a lot of people, but That's just shy of 5,000 votes in the presidential race right there. The question is, when those votes come in tonight, how much ground do the Republicans make up, and can the Democrats offset it somewhere else?
All right, we got a key race alert right now. Take a look at this. 64% of the vote is in David Perdue has now taken a very, very narrow lead over the Democrat John Ossoff. His lead, 787 votes. 787 votes for David Perdue over John Ossoff, the Democrat. 50%, 50%, 1.3 million, 1.3 million. The difference, 787 votes. That lead by Ossoff was incredibly much higher earlier, not that long ago. Purdue's lead has now gone up to 1,538 votes. 64% of the vote is in. The other contest, RAPHAEL Warnock, he still has nearly a 25,000 vote lead over the Republican Kelly Loeffler. So we're watching all of this. That lead is now 17,900 right now. You know, John, I just want to go back to the Atlanta suburban counties, whether Gwinnett, DeKalb, Cobb. There's still a lot of votes out there, and these are heavily Democratic counties out there, so there's still plenty of opportunities for the Democrats.
Plenty of opportunities for the Democrats, but also as we watch the today vote come in, it's absolutely critical. The Democrats will win those counties. The question is, do their margins shrink, and do Republicans, through the math, make up some votes? So let's start on the biggest one of all. That is Fulton County, Atlanta, and the suburbs to the north and the southwest. You see there, Pastor Warnock at 75%. This is his home, the Atlanta area. He's the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church. You see right here, he's at 75%. They're up to 87% reporting. Just want to flip over here. John Ossoff running a little bit behind in the home county with Pastor Warnock. But the Democrats doing there, again, just for context, Joe Biden gets 73% in Fulton County. So you're also looking at the raw numbers. The raw numbers matter. But if your first basic threshold is, let's check the percentages. Are we getting our basic metric? And yes, the Democrats are.
I do, and I lived there until 1996, and I came here to Fox, and it's a very different state than the one I left politically.
Yeah, there's no question about it, Sean, and listen, I mean, you have a lot of pissed off people in this country, quite frankly, and I think you're going to see that tonight. They look back at what happened in November. They think they were robbed. They think they were robbed. They know they were robbed in a state like Georgia, and I think, quite frankly, it's motivated a lot of people. I think it's one of the reasons you're seeing some of the turnout you're seeing on the Republican side. It's probably the reason you're seeing the turnout you're seeing on the opposite side. But you have a lot of really upset people in this country. I mean, 75 million to be exact, and actually, you know, many more than that, because we had ballots that were being thrown in drainage ditches, and you had ballots that were being torn up, and you had ballots that were purposely being thrown away and lost. And so, as discouraging as that is in one way to Republicans across this country, I think it also motivated a lot of people to get out there and vote, especially in a place like Georgia, which saw a lot of funny business, a couple months ago.
For Loeffler in the tally right now, about 2/3 in statewide. So right now, where we are in the tally is Warnock still has more votes than Loeffler. Perdue, about 17,000 more votes than Ossoff. Again, that's a difference of about 25,000 votes. That's what I mean about that's potentially a significant difference. Where did this sudden surge of votes for Republicans come from? One place it came from is a place we have been talking about a lot lately, Cherokee County. And again, we're at that state. We want to see if anything is left here. But here's Perdue. We said there were, last time we checked in, we were getting close, there were more precincts. With the more precincts that came in, Perdue has now moved above that number, above that Trump number. Again, by historical standards, 69.7 is not a great number for a Republican in Cherokee County, but for a Republican trying to just scrape by in this election here, in this runoff election, to be a point above Trump in Cherokee County, that's a good sign in that county for Republicans. Again, there may still be some outstanding votes, so I want to wait till we get confirmation on that to talk about what we know from the turnout there, what we're learning from the turnout there, but we got a big batch of votes. These are election day votes. Cherokee County, biggest Republican vote producing county in the state. That is one of the reasons that Perdue is taking the lead statewide. One other reason that Perdue is taking the lead statewide is right here in Forsyth County. Again, now what you're looking at here is the mail-in vote in Forsyth County. So it's more Democratic. See, this was a 66% Trump county. You see Perdue sitting at just under 53% right now. You say, oh, Purdue's doing terribly. This is the mail-in vote that's been counted here. This is the best vote Democrats are going to get. The question, as the same-day vote comes in, as the early vote comes in again, is does Perdue get to that number? Does he get to that Trump number? Does he exceed that Trump number? Republicans don't want to be hitting Trump numbers. Trump lost the state. Republicans want to be exceeding Trump numbers. So what we just saw in Cherokee County, does that happen? Does David Perdue do that in Forsyth County? For that matter, Does Kelly Loeffler do that? Here's Warnock at 48.2 in the Mayo. Here's Ossoff, a point under what Warnock got. This is the Mayo vote. Ossoff in the Mayo vote running a point behind Warnock. Again, that's something we've been seeing. Forsyth is one of these counties. It's Cherokee, it's Paulding.
Watch here. You're watching what's still out around here. And if you're the Republicans, this gray has to come in for you, and it has to come in big. If you're the Republicans, those numbers need to get better in Forsyth County. And when the rest of Cherokee County, you're up to 95% now. So this is one of the places where you knew, if you were a Republican, this was going to help you. The question is, you've gotten most of your help now. So if you're going to need votes, you have to find them elsewhere.
Yeah, it's really, really close. Take a look at the numbers right now. Look at this, 66% of the vote is in. 2/3 of the vote has now been counted in Georgia. Look at how close it is. RAPHAEL Warnock's lead is 12,395 over Republican Kelly Loeffler. He's got 50.2% to 49.8%. The other contest, the Republican David Perdue, a mirror image of the RAPHAEL Warnock Kelly Loeffler contest. Perdue has a lead of more than 14,000 votes over the Democrat Jon Ossoff right now, 50.2% to 49.8%. Remember, 2/3 of the estimated vote is now in. It is incredibly close. Both of these contests with plenty of votes outstanding. Mirror images right now, but these contests are really close.
And so as we walk through this, one of the things we will do.
And not one Democrat and nobody in the media would not only investigate it, but they pushed the Russia-Trump collusion. They're like truthers, liars.
Yeah.
They never were held accountable. People that did it were not held accountable. I never thought a lot of these things could happen.
I didn't either. I mean, listen, I'm a guy who's lived a very, very clean life. I've, lived a very, very clean life. You see the way they attack me, you see the way they attack Don, Ivanka, Bear, I mean, our entire family. You see how they come after us. And Sean, they got it wrong. The elite, the quote-unquote elite in the media got it wrong. They said that Donald Trump had a 1.6% chance of becoming president of the United States. New York Times, the morning of election, November 8, 2016, a 1.6 chance of winning the election. They all got it wrong. And they were embarrassed. So what do? They double down and they double down and they double down. They make up stories, and it's rather remarkable. I mean, it's rather remarkable. And I don't even think they believe that Joe Biden won, to tell you the truth. They know that the cheating existed. They know the funny business that was taking place all over. And
they enabled the guy to hide in his basement and never asked him a tough question and never vetted him. And they did his job attacking your father. But all right, Eric, thank you.
Exactly.
Appreciate it. When we come back, numbers continue to pour in out of Georgia. We'll check back in with Bill Hemmer. He's at the big board. Senator Ted Cruz, the great one, Mark Levin, a preview of tomorrow's big day in Washington, and much more straight ahead.
Want your brain better? Unlike ordinary memory.
Quickie race alert right now, and all of a sudden the Democrat RAPHAEL Warnock has taken the lead over the Republican Kelly Loeffler by almost 20,000 votes, 19,160 votes. He was behind, now he's ahead, 50.3% to 49.70%. 75% of the estimated vote is now in. Impressive how they're counting the vote in Georgia right now. And Jon Ossoff, the Democrats, closing in on Perdue. He was more significantly ahead just a little while ago, the Republican David Perdue. He's still ahead by 5,600 votes over Jon Ossoff, 50.1% to 49.9%. It's close, very close. Both of these Senate runoffs.
Necessarily believe that. I think those numbers should dismay you mightily, and I think it's in everyone's interest for there to be a credible forum that is impartial, that has credibility, that can consider the evidence. And what I'm calling for is an emergency 10-day audit. Just audit the results, consider the claims, look at the evidence, and by doing it in 10 days, we can complete it before January 20th, before the presidential inauguration. And I think that would help provide much greater faith and confidence in the election than simply charging forward and saying whatever the results are, whatever the fraud was, we're going to certify anyway. I hope Congress doesn't do that, but right now, based on the public statements, it sure seems that's the direction the votes are going.
We'd get two hours in each the House and the Senate, correct, sir?
That's right. So under the statute that governs this, when a senator and a House member object together, and I intend to object to the state of Arizona, the states, you will go through an alphabetical order. So Arizona is early in the alphabet. It's the first of the contested states. I'm going to be objecting along with Arizona House members. That will trigger an automatic 2 hours of debate in each chamber. So we will retire to our separate chambers. Senators in the Senate chamber, the House members in the House chambers have 2 hours of debate. I'm going to do my best to lay out the case for why this is the right course of action. And I got to tell you, Sean, the way I arrived upon this is I was really struggling with the choices that all the members were being faced, because we had two lousy choices. If a member of Congress votes against an objection, what an awful lot of voters are going to hear from that is that you don't think voter fraud is real, that it's serious, you don't think that it occurred in this election, and that's obviously not right. And I got to say, most, at least of the Republicans, don't believe that. But on the other hand, I think all of us, understandably and rightly, don't want to be voting to set aside the results of an election just because the candidate we happen to support didn't prevail. And so I really looked for, all right, is there another option? And what I did is I scoured history and scoured precedents. And I think the most apt precedent is the presidential election of 1876. That was the election between Rutherford B. Hayes, the Republican, and Samuel Tilden, the Democrat. And in that election, there were, just like this election, serious allegations of voter fraud in 3 states, in Florida, in Louisiana, and South Carolina. And what did Congress do in 1877? Congress didn't throw up its hands and say, we have no solution here, we can't do anything, we've got to ignore these allegations of voter fraud. No, what they did is they appointed an electoral commission. It consisted of 5 House members, 5 senators, and 5 U.S. Supreme Court justices. That commission was charged with reviewing the evidence and making a determination about the disputed ballots.
Has been. So in the tally right now, Republicans lead. Now, here's what I can tell you in terms of what is left to be counted in the state. Again, we have more than 3/4 of the vote is in right now. Take a look at where these bubbles are. And I'm going to try to zoom in because they're so big here in the Atlanta metro area. I want to kind of shrink them for you. Here are the 4 biggest bubbles that you see in the Atlanta metro area. What counties account for these? This is Cobb County, is that enormous bubble right there. This is Fulton County, this is DeKalb County, and this is Gwinnett County. Collectively, each one of these individually and collectively, these are core Democratic counties now. Counties where, DeKalb Democrats are going to be getting over 80%. In Fulton, they want to be over 70%. In Gwinnett, they want to be around 60%. And they want to be in the high 50s in Cobb. In other words, every one of these counties is producing big votes for Democrats right now. We think that of the remaining vote in the entire state of Georgia right now, more than about 45% of it is going to come from these 4 counties. 4 core Democratic counties, about 44% of it. Normally, these counties, I could put these numbers so you could see, about 40, I don't know what I just did, try that again. From those four counties, about 44%. They account for, just in terms of, in a normal election, they're going to account for 33% of all votes cast in the state. In other words, disproportionately, the votes that remain to be counted in the state of Georgia are from core Democrat, 4 core Democratic counties: Cobb, Fulton, DeKalb, and Gwinnett. They're going to make up 33% or so of all votes that are cast statewide, but right now they make up about 44% of what's left to come. So if you follow, the Democrats have fallen behind here in the vote tally. Again, Cherokee, Forsyth, some of these big Republican exurban counties, we've gotten a lot of the vote in. That vote, we've not still gotten most or all of the vote in some of these big Democratic counties in the immediate Atlanta metro area. And I see that Perdue lead jumping there to 43,000. So that is, I think, the biggest remaining variable in this is the outstanding vote in the immediate Atlanta metro area. Those are going to be good counties for Democrats. And certainly with those 4 counties I just mentioned, that would eat in.
It's tension time in all of the headquarters.
The Democrats are waiting for those big counties in and around Atlanta because there's still plenty of votes outstanding. We'll see what happens. Let's take another quick break. Much more of our coverage. This is Election Night in America. Continue.
specifically rejected executives, that is governors and anybody in the executive branch choosing the president or the vice president of the United States, and they rejected the idea that the judiciary would be involved in the process. Yet in all 4 of those states, the executives and the judiciary had more impact and more input into the election laws leading up to this election than the state legislatures did. They were utterly cut out. So here we have a problem. We have a constitutional crisis that nobody wants to talk about. The 4 battleground states, you had unconstitutional elections if you follow the Constitution. Unconstitutional elections as a result of what the Democrats did, circumventing the state legislatures. And so what I hear now is, well, 60 suits were brought and 60 suits were lost, and the Supreme Court would, doesn't matter. This is what matters. This, Madison's notes, the Constitution, not precedent, none of it. What matters is the plain language in the Constitution. They picked the state legislatures because they decided that was the place that they wanted the elections determined, that they would decide what the election laws would be. So the Democrats circumvented every single one of these in those 4 states, as did the Republican leadership in Georgia. So now what do? So these electors have been certified. Who certified them? The very Democrat officials, and in the case of Georgia, the very incompetent Republican officials who changed the laws in the first place. So in Pennsylvania, the governor ultimately certifies the electors, sends it to the archivist in Washington, D.C., so he's certifying his own unconstitutional actions. Same thing happens in Michigan. Same thing happens in Wisconsin. And frankly, with incompetent Republican leadership in Georgia, same thing happens in Georgia. Now we...
Impossible to imagine a situation like that. I just continue to keep that in mind because there continues to be a gap between those candidates. So it's 56,000 is the Perdue advantage in that race. It is 30,000 right now is the Loeffler advantage over Warnock. Republicans have gotten some big boosts from the excerpts of Atlanta. You can just see it's ticking up a little bit more. And again, Cobb, Fulton, DeKalb, Gwinnett. You really want to see what comes in out of there. And as I mentioned, it probably is now worth just reinforcing this. You look at Fulton County, 86% of the vote is in. I believe, and I'm just checking this, there are still some same-day votes to be counted in Fulton County. So the same-day vote that's going to come in Fulton County is the least, it'll still be Democratic, but it could bring that number down a little bit. But Democrats will gain votes in Fulton County from the same-day vote. There are also, and I am going to send a text message to election officials here in a minute and hope to heck they respond to it, but they were talking about potentially getting, there are some outstanding mail votes, potentially getting the bulk of those done late tonight. I want to see if that's still a live possibility for them. And if not, there's the potential in Fulton County for, I am going to say 10, 15,000, maybe a little bit more, mail-in votes that would not be counted till tomorrow morning. So I want to get a sense of when they are going to get, there are some mail votes left to be counted in Fulton County. Those are going to be an extremely Democratic batch of votes. Don't know the exact number, but are we going to get those late tonight? Are we going to get those tomorrow morning? Are we going to get a little bit of both? But in an election this close, that becomes a significant variable. Again, you could just check in here. The Democrats want to be north of that Biden number in Fulton County. Right now, Warnock certainly is. Ossoff, you just saw, you can put it up there again. Ossoff is as well. So Democrats, the opportunity is there. The opportunity, and I'm just checking to see if we got any more. We got half of Cobb County in right now. And again, what's a target for Democrats here? 56.3 is the Biden number. You see, Ossoff is, half the vote is in. Ossoff is getting a margin now of 40,000 votes over David Perdue. If that pace continues, and it probably won't, it'll probably come down some, but you can certainly see in the remaining vote in Cobb County, just given the size of it, and given the Democrats are going to win this county, it's just a question of how much. You certainly see the potential of Ossoff to outpace Perdue by tens of thousands of votes in what is left to come in Cobb County. That is equally true, more true, for Warnock over Loeffler. Warnock outpacing even Ossoff right now. So that's an example. You see, Cobb County, Democrats can still net quite a bit out of there. DeKalb County, I mean, again, look at this. You got 120,000 votes, about 125,000, a little bit less than that have been counted so far. This is going to be an 80% plus Democratic county. This is going to be an 83, 84, 85% Democratic county. a ton of votes still to be counted there. And then you go to Gwinnett County. Now we're closer to getting it all in Gwinnett County. You can see, though, there is an opportunity for Democrats to squeeze a little bit more out of Gwinnett County. And all of these, in Gwinnett, certainly in Fulton and Cobb, I don't believe it's the case. They are. In DeKalb, Warnock is actually running a little bit ahead of that Biden number. It's Ossoff who's actually a fraction of a point behind it.
Yes, there are places, Democratic areas, where there are a lot of votes. Most of them are around Atlanta. I'm just going to start over here because I just want to keep checking. We've been stuck at 40% in Chatham County, which is where Savannah is and the suburbs around it. We're loudly Democratic, very important to Joe Biden's victory back in November. So when will that change and what will it tell us, right? So this is very important for the Democrats and we get more votes here. You see the math right there. It's just shy, you get 17,000 votes right there. So can you match that as you keep going? Can you get your votes into it? That's one place you're going to look in both of the races. That was just one of them there. Then you come over here. The most votes are here in Fulton County, but you're up to 86% of the estimated vote. That can fluctuate a little bit. But you see what it means at 86, right? 289 to 95, giant margin. That's enormous. So when the rest of that vote comes in, can the Democrats pick up thousands? They need to pick up thousands. They need to pick up 10,000 or more in the votes. That's what you're waiting for to see. And then you're looking around the Atlanta metro area. Cobb County at 51%. It's less Democratic than Fulton County, but it's a place where Democrats will make up some math. Then you come over here. This has been the mystery throughout the night. This has been stuck here for a long time at 37% in DeKalb County. Nick Valencia, our correspondent, earlier said they were working and they hope to report more votes. Watch to see, and if you see the board change quickly and suddenly, probably a source of it here, then you move over here to Gwinnett. That was the big dump 20 minutes or so ago that moved things for the Democrats. It was then countered by a big Republican county, but we're waiting for the rest of the votes here. And again, you see this is the second largest county. So when you get vote, even though you're up to 84%, there's still a lot of votes here to be counted. But when you come out here as well, you just look, you're looking at these smaller counties here. The gray means we have no votes yet. This is a smaller county, only 0.3% of the population, 56th out of the 159, but we have no votes yet. This is going to come in red. Republicans are going to add to their vote totals here, and they're leading at the moment. This one here is going to come in red, and Republicans are leading right now, and they're going to add to their total. So the question for Democrats, you're looking at this map, these two down here, Coffee County here is going to come in red. Republicans, it's a smaller county, but Republicans can pick up another 1,000, 1,500, maybe 2,000 votes there, as well as here in Appling County. It will come in red. The question is, how big will the margins be? And so if you're the Democrats and you know that, you're looking, your part of the state is filled in, right? You want to look at the counties that Joe Biden won back in the election. These are the counties that Joe Biden won. And now you look at them now, they all have votes in right now, except right here. Do we have no votes in here? Here we go. One small county here. Go back to 2020 and see it's a very tiny number of votes. So it's not going to be a significant change when you look at that county right there. So let's stay in 2021. And let's come back out and let's pop out of this to look at the statewide votes. 62,000. If you're the Democrats and you need to make that up, can you do it? Yes, still mathematically possible, but you need to start running it. And you need to start here in Chatham County, and then you need a very impressive, when we see the next significant, I just want to check up here, you're up to 95% in Richmond. That's Augusta. Atlanta Metro is your foundation. You're looking for other building blocks. You'd come over here, you're up to 80%. So there's a possibility you get some here, but again, look at the math. It's not the giant math that you see right around Atlanta. So you know the Republicans are going to pick up the gray here and the gray here. The question for the Democrats, and again, in that race especially, 63,000 votes there, 36,000 votes there if you round up a little bit. Democrats have to find them, Wolf, and most of them have to come from here. And so you see you're up to 60%. Newton County is much more competitive. You might get a few here, but you're not going to get a lot. You come into Rockdale County, you're up to 95%, so you're almost done. Can't count on more than a few here. You come down here to Henry County, you're at 83%. It's a smaller county, but Democrats could get a little bit of math here. Clayton, which is giant for the Democrats, is up to 86%, though. The question is, this could be a place where you pick up some votes. This was critical to Joe Biden as this go back to election week in America in November, as we went 2-3 days out and they started counting the mail-in and the early ballots here. Clayton was critical. Then you move up again. The biggest question for me is when the DeKalb number goes up, are there enough votes to significantly narrow it? This is where the Democrats are going to be watching to see if they have hope. They need to see a down payment from right there.
I want to go to Nick Valencia. He's in DeKalb County for us right now. What are you picking up over there, Nick?
Yeah, some new information coming into us just now here at CNN from Gabe Sterling with the Secretary of State's office, Wolf, who tells us that the largest number of in-person early votes. The largest number is here in DeKalb County, which of course is a Democratic stronghold. We've been telling you updates all night here. This is a county that Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff desperately need in order to secure a victory here. There's been lots of activity inside, a collective effort going on inside from officials in there to try to get this done. They know all eyes are really on the big four counties here in the state, but specifically right now, DeKalb County. Wolf?
All right, thanks very much, Nick. 37% of the vote in DeKalb County, John, is in, so there's still plenty of outstanding votes. This is a pretty Democratic county.
It is, and it's now absolutely critical. Again, when you pull out statewide and you look at the leads, just ahead of 29,000 there for Senator Loeffler, and a much bigger lead, 56,000 for Senator Perdue. If you're the Democrats, you know where these have to come from. And it's interesting when Nick says they're still behind there working. What it tells me is that they've decided, you come out here, they're at 37% right now. Are we going to get one giant reporting of votes that gets us up to 80% or higher, or are we going to get them in chunks? The fact that they've reported nothing for quite some time tells me they're trying to come in with a big giant report. We'll see if that's the case when it happens, but if
they're up by 28, that gets wiped out, and the Democrats go ahead by 14. The Republicans go back ahead by maybe 16, and then they add 60,000 if they maintain that number at 65%. If there are 300,000 more votes left out there on Election Day, and the Republicans take them by the same margin, then they get 90,000 votes, another 30,000 added to their number. But look, we don't know how many more votes there are out there, and we really don't know a very important piece of the puzzle. Fulton to DeKalb are very Democrat. We don't know, we don't know how many mail-in ballots are left there, which are the worst for the Republicans, the best for the Democrats. We don't know how many early votes, which are better for the Republicans, but the Democrats will still win them in those two counties. And we don't know how many Election Day votes are out there, which will be the best for the Republicans, but they'll still get beaten badly in both of those two counties. And then we don't know what the margin is in Cobb and Gwinnett, which are both going to be won by the Democrats. But the question is, how close are the Republicans going to be there?
The largest chunk, though, scares me tonight is DeKalb is the most outstanding, the biggest county with the most outstanding votes, but we don't know. You're right. All right, Carl, great analysis. Thank you. Here with more, author of the bestseller, Firebrand, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. Let me go to tomorrow and what's going to happen in the House. There's going to be 2 hours of debate. 140 or 50 so of your colleagues are going to stand up and say, we want an audit.
You're absolutely right, Sean, and we're seeing tens of thousands of our fellow Americans pouring into Washington, D.C., and I have to tell you, I wish we had a little more of that fighting spirit here inside the halls of Congress. Levin on your show just talked about the serious constitutional issues that are impacting the validity of the vote in Michigan and Wisconsin. But as I give you this report tonight, we do not have senators willing to object to the electors in Michigan or Wisconsin or Nevada, where you saw a lot more of the transient vote where people had left the state but were still casting votes in the state of Nevada. So we may only have 180 precious minutes tomorrow to make our case that there was real voter fraud, a case that the media says we can't possibly make. And Sean, here is the disturbing news that I have to share with you based on the negotiations we've just been having with Republican leadership. Republican leadership is contemplating taking the 1 hour we have to present our objections on each state and giving part of that time away to Republicans who don't support the objections. And so that means that all the Democrats will be fighting against us, and then we'll be using our own time that we should be using to fight for election integrity to divide among Republicans who have a different view. I don't think that's unified teamwork.
Police reform background, and we'll see. I think that what happens tonight will say a lot to the president-elect because he will know whether he has a Senate that he's going to have to fight to get confirmation or not. And I think the decision of what happened with Blake and Kenosha and what has happened with the shooting death of an unarmed man in Columbus, Ohio, I think, Mr. Hill, I think we'll have to factor in. Joe Biden is sensitive enough to know that what he's choosing is not someone he likes, but who is needed to protect American citizens at this point in history.
The Reverend Al Sharpton, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to send it back
And I'm taking off my reading. I'm taking off my reading glasses to see if Rachel will call me adorable.
I'm sure she thinks you're adorable. I'm going to send it back to her now. Rachel, you've been invoked on the reading glasses.
I have. I feel like I'm not sure that my faith allows me to call a reverend adorable.
I'll do it.
I'll call you anything else tomorrow.
Rev, you're adorable.
Thank you. Thank you. I will permit you to call me adorable, Rachel. I will give you that.
I'm absolved. You are adorable, Rev. Very good. Excellent. All right. Well, the reason we're all taking our reading glasses on and off is because we are all clicking refresh, 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 and watching these results come in. I mentioned moments ago that we'd been told there was going to be a press conference by the Georgia Secretary of State, raising eyebrows. Is there something going on that the Georgia Secretary of State needs to let us know about? They did do that press conference. It was brief. It was basically just an update of the kind that we've been getting from Steve Kornacki in terms of what counties have outstanding vote and what counties have essentially completed the task of reporting their.
I have several patients who are over the age of 7.
Recently, and said that if the Republican candidates for Senate lose, they can play.
Mr. Holder, with removable cups, the cup foam fits in virtually any vehicle.
New My Pillow mattress topper. I made it to have everything you'd ever want in.
I'm a performer. Always have been and always will be. Never letting anything get in my way. Not the devil.
Person for voter registration told the AJC that the county is still working to verify the oath signatures with the inner ballot envelopes for the mail-in ballots. Several drop box and mail ballots were submitted today. They're still processing those ballots as well. The dozens of people in line outside the building are the captains of the 191 precincts in the county. Those officials have to process all the boxes, then the chips from those boxes have to be processed elsewhere. I know they told us we were going to have these results by 11 o'clock, but now it's 11:08, and this is what they say is happening there right now. I think we've been had.
And it also, I mean, look, if you paid attention to Georgia politics over the last, many years, really going back to the Stacey Abrams race, Georgia is not a state that tends to make it easy to vote, to say the least. There have been voter purges. There have been questions over signature matching. There were massive purges conducted by the exact same Secretary of State who's getting praised for standing up to Donald Trump like it's sort of intervention on that maybe illegal call. And by the governor, Brian Kemp, who got in. He was the former Secretary of State, basically was his own referee. So it doesn't surprise me that there would be delays and there would be issues that then come right back down to majority black counties. Because suppressing black and non-white votes is kind of the business of Republican government in Georgia, I hate to say. But I think what you've seen is that there's been a push-pull because of that. Because of the suppression and because of the historic nature of Raphael Warnock, quite frankly, both of them are historic candidates. It would be I don't know if it would be the first Jewish senator, but it could be in terms of Ossoff. But in terms of Raphael Warnock, he's a historic figure who's also a known figure who's seated in the middle of a vicious attack on the black church and on black faith, right? And then you have Ossoff, who worked for John Lewis, whose ghost appears to be having some direction, on the aspect of what we're seeing going on here. So it's the whole thing, it's sort of poetic, right? That it's going to come down to delays in majority black counties. That's how Georgia politics is kind of built.
A journey unfolding just a day before the certification of the still contested 2020 presidential election, but not before they raised their voices and their objections to an election that was, in their view, stolen. On Wednesday, the demonstrations are expected to begin as early as 7 a.m. and move from the Ellipse to the Capitol throughout the day. At 11 a.m., the assembled will hear from their leader, the leader of the free world, as President Trump delivers remarks from the White House. Then at 1, the certification process begins on Capitol Hill, approximately going to January 7th. Why? Well, because there are expected to be numerous objections to the certification, particularly involving the states of Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. Each successful objection could then take up to 3 to 4 hours of debate. However, because Democrats control the House and GOP Senate support for objecting to the certification is relatively soft, it's still expected that Biden and Harris will be certified at some point, barring a surprise move by Vice President Mike Pence, who will preside over the process and who the president today insisted on Twitter has the power to reject fraudulently chosen electors. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley was the first to signal his support for objecting to the certification and has been leading the charge to upend the election on Capitol Hill. Last night, protesters targeted his home, harassed his family and neighbors, a familiar intimidation tactic used by left-wing activists at the homes of prominent conservatives, including Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell and even Fox's own Tucker Carlson. No arrests were made in any of those instances, nor when left-wing vandals set fire to historic St. John's Church. But the same can't be said of the professed leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, who was arrested in Washington and banned from entering the city following vandalism and weapons charges. Now, obviously, everyone is hoping for a very peaceful day here in the nation's capital. Still, we are told that we should expect massive traffic restrictions tomorrow and a very heavy law enforcement presence here.
Here's First Alert Live Doppler radar. Let's take a little bit of a tour here. We've had some echoes showing up on the radar here in southeastern parts of the area. Most of this has not been making it down to the ground at all. They're still kind of dry. It's going to take a little bit yet for the air to become saturated for this precip to make it down to the ground. Probably the same thing here in south central South Dakota. You may have had a couple of sprinkles or flurries up here. It looks like there might be some snow making down to the ground there in Hand County. Now, we've more than likely had some precipitation making it all the way down to the ground in northeastern South Dakota, where you see some of this darker shades of blue there, and the radar's even trying to show some rain kind of redeveloping northeast of the Aberdeen area. So we'll continue to watch this here as the evening goes on. And again, this is not going to be a huge system, but you definitely will want to slow down. And there's not going to be a lot of wind with this either. Here's our future cast for wind. We're talking, 5, maybe 15 miles an hour across parts of our area tonight into tomorrow morning through about noon. It's about an hour or so. Tomorrow evening.
We don't know. And what's amazing is, we knew that this would be a dramatic day and that these two races would be dramatic because they do determine the balance of power in the Senate. But let's face it, we thought the 2020 election drama was behind us when it comes to the ballot box, and it's not. It is not, because what we're hearing from our sources, all of us, is so much anticipation, so much anxiety, a lot of nervousness on both sides because of this, the way it's going to go down in general, but particularly DeKalb County.
Yeah, I mean, we do have to keep in mind that this is a red state. Georgia is not even yet, I think, considered a purple state.
No, I agree. Yeah.
And so the fact that these two races are as competitive as they are is a really remarkable thing, especially considering when you look back at November, you saw Perdue and you saw Kelly Loeffler actually overperforming Trump in that state. And doing a little bit better. There was a gap between their opponents of a couple of points. It was not enough to get them to the 50% threshold. But now we're looking at a scenario in which this race is going to be very, very tight. And as you heard Gabriel Sterling just say, when we get this tranche of votes from DeKalb, it could end up putting the Democrats up for some time. We don't know how long, because there are still more votes outstanding, but that's a complete change of fortunes. And it's one that I think it should be a wake-up call for Republicans.
And speaking of Gabriel Sterling, Republican election official from Georgia, who the other day felt the need to go and refute point by point all of the conspiracy theory lies that President Trump and his allies have been pushing, I find it hard to believe that Gabriel Sterling, who knows much more about every precinct in every county in Georgia than any of us, except for maybe John King, I find it hard to believe that he would go out and preemptively say, if we lose these races, it will be on the back of Donald Trump. Donald Trump will be responsible. I find it hard to believe that he would say that if he thought that there was a good chance Loeffler and Perdue would win.
Well, certainly, I don't think he would say that if he thought that they would win comfortably. And let's be honest, these are Republican seats. It's a Republican state. It's a place and a time where Republicans should be very competitive. and they are in a squeaker right now.
Yeah.
That is true. And I think Gabriel Sterling is looking at the numbers and he knows that. He's looking at some of these red counties and he's seeing underperformance from where Republicans were a few months ago in November. And there's a really simple explanation for that. When you tell everyone that the thing is rigged, they're not going to want to show up. And not only that, but President Trump told his supporters that they should hold it against the Republican elected officials in that state, that they did not do what he wanted them to do, which is flip the state of Georgia to him. So President Trump made...
Look, again, Sioux Falls could see another inch-type snow on Saturday. Highs in the upper 20s is still a degree or two above average, but we expect to have a lot more clouds than sunshine over the next several days. Just mostly cloudy skies as temperatures hover around the upper 20s. The Aberdeen area, also mostly cloudy skies the rest of the week. Could see an inch-type snow on Saturday. Partly cloudy, around 30s Sunday into next week. Pierre, a light snow Friday.
Do it. Knock
You're
yourselves
right,
out. Exactly. Knock yourselves out.
Get rid of the EC.
Joe Biden will be the next president, but you're right. This electoral college thing, woo, gotta go. That would be the jiu-jitsu move.
I have the role here of gently going to, maybe as a standoff, going to Steve Kornacki, who I've been watching during our conversation, at
busy.
one point get on one knee in front of the board.
It's the shank of the evening.
I'm not rushing your process, and I'm seeing DeKalb still at 42.
Right.
But I also have reason to believe you know of some new number?
Yes, the DeKalb County website has just posted an update. Now, I'll tell you right now, this may populate in our system as I'm going through these numbers, so these numbers could kind of go berserk here in a second. There it is.
There it is.
Okay, that makes the math a little easier. This is not all of the, this is not all, but this is most of the early vote that just came in here in DeKalb County. And you can see here now a 200,000 vote margin for John Ossoff in DeKalb County, 82.5% of the vote. Let's check Raphael Warnock, 82.2% of the vote, a 90,000. Oh, this one still has to, all right, we'll come back to that. Here you can see Ossoff, 200,000 vote edge. What did that do to the statewide tally? Now Ossoff trails by 2,140 votes. That was over 100,000. We're talking about that Perdue lead growing and growing and being over 100,000. With that update, again, that's not everything. There is still a little bit more to come from DeKalb County. With that update, Ossoff has almost entirely erased what David Perdue's lead had been. Let's check now again if we've got the Warnock Loeffler vote here in DeKalb County. There it is. Okay. Warnock now 83.2%, a margin of 204,000 votes. Now remember, he was already doing better statewide than John Ossoff. Raphael Warnock has taken the lead statewide in Georgia right now. He leads by 32,000 votes and change. So with that update from overwhelmingly Democratic DeKalb County, what you just got in there was early vote and what you just got in there was early vote. Again, not all of it. There is still some more to come. That's most of it. But what you've got here is that has put Raphael Warnock into a 32,000 vote lead statewide. That has brought John Ossoff within 2,140 votes of David Perdue statewide. Let's reset now in terms of what is still to come in. These things just got very, very close, and that is not at all.
That was 2 hours ago.
Is the size of those bubbles proportional?
Yes, that's exactly. Boy, that nearly had a heart attack looking at that.
Yeah.
What happened there was we had over 100,000 votes, about 131,000 votes just suddenly come in, and so it's resized these counties. Okay, now, literally in real time here, Perdue just added 15,000. I'm going to ask my producer, what just came in the last 30 seconds? The DeKalb, they put the wrong number in for DeKalb?
Oh, good.
Bartow, there was a problem with the Bartow County number. Okay, the numbers sometimes get entered wrong. They had entered them a little bit incorrectly for Bartow County and for DeKalb. Is this the correct number? This is the correct number. So it is 19,629. That is the statewide lead for David Perdue right now. Raphael Warnock's lead over Kelly Loeffler is 20,010 votes. 20,010 for Warnock.
USAA. What you're made of, we're made for.
This is my phone. It's also my new bank, GoTo Bank, the ultimate app that makes banking super easy. There are
Turn this off, slide this over. That doesn't want to go for me there. Okay, I'll come over here. We'll just do the other race here. Move this way for me. In the Ossoff Perdue race, 139,000 plus. 139,932, almost 140,000. 83.5. So again, a little bit behind. Forgive the scribble as I reach across there. The decimal point in there for you to 27,000. 27,718. So that's what happened. That's what happened. We've been waiting for a long time for this to come in. It came in, giant numbers, giant net gain for both Democrats. More than 100,000 there, almost 114,000 when you look at it there. Again, more than 110,000 there, 112,000 there. That's what did it. The question now is, as you go through this, is can you find the rest of the votes where you need to do it as you go through. Let me just switch here and come up on a different map so I can leave my math up over there. And you come up here and we come back to 2021, back to our Senate race. Let's come on in here. Here's where we are. David Perdue just now is up. Let me check the math. Yeah, it's gone up a little bit there. Again, you start to see this happen. This is live election night reporting as they get closer here. His lead has gone up a little bit. David Perdue's lead. Again, these Republican counties are finishing the count, just as DeKalb County just changed the race. You move over here. Raphael Warnock, 20,000 votes ahead there as it goes through. So now, a very different conversation than we were having just a few moments ago. One Democrat in the lead, the other Democrat down 20,000. That's still tough. That's tough. So you're in a very tough there. The question is, are there more? So where'd that just come in? They just came in from DeKalb County. We're still missing 6%. Still missing 6%. So there are more votes to be had for the Democrats here. If those trends continue, no guarantee, but we've seen this. There's some predictability to that. The Democrats will pick up here. And then you're going around the area, right? Gwinnett's at 95. 95% is most of the votes, but look at the lopsided Democratic advantage. It's possible, right? It's possible for both of these Democratic candidates to get more votes in Fulton County, where they have a giant, enormous advantage here, 95%. Most of the vote counted, but in the largest county in the state, population-wise, voter registration-wise, 5% is still a decent chunk of votes. And you move over here to Cobb County, up to 94%. The Democrats, the net's not as big here. It's not as lopsided in their favor, but they get some advantage here as well. So we're having a very different conversation, Wolf, than just a short time ago. I'm moving around the area here just to see what's left. You come south, Clayton County, the Atlanta airport is here, the Democratic area here, up to 95%. So you're close here, but there are in places where the population is higher, the 6th largest county here, the 4th largest county here, the largest county here. Yes, you're up to 95%. Still means there's some votes.
It says this is a good idea. It may.
Loving that. Lincoln with a nice pass to Kyler Dahl. He's going to lay it up.
Right? You're searching red, trying to look for lower numbers as well. And again, only 34% of the vote counted here. Nowhere near as many votes. Nowhere near as many votes. So you're looking at it here at 34%, 2,000 vote difference there and change. So yes, Republicans will pick up some votes here. If you're David Perdue and you're in the lead right now by 15,000 votes, it's great. Anywhere you can add, you're going to do it. This is Kelly Loeffler will pick up some votes here as well as they finish. But if you're behind now, it's not enough. So you're moving around trying to figure out how many of these smaller rural counties have votes left. And again, 95, you'll get some, but look at the math. Look at what we're talking about. Places where there are still some Republican votes out tend to be smaller. 95% here, 94% here. And so let's just pull back out and double check the math because results are coming in as we speak. That was 19,000 a moment ago. It's 15,000 now. This one, 19,000 lead here. So DeKalb County, we said all night, that would decide whether or not these races were going to get competitive, whether we're going to have a game-changing moment. DeKalb County gave us a game-changing moment. It put Pastor Warnock in the lead, and it put John Ossoff back in play, and now we count the rest.
Pamela Brown's getting some new information on DeKalb County. Pamela, what are you learning?
Well, we're all wondering what is left in DeKalb County. And if you do the math, and I just confirmed it with Gabriel Sterling with the Secretary of State's office in Georgia, there's still nearly 20,000 votes, early in-person votes, left to be uploaded in DeKalb County. That is important because you look at how close the margins are, and we know that the early votes tend to favor the Democrats. This could really make a difference in...
The other thing I would point out, Shannon, is unbelievably, the polling that a lot of people were very skeptical of was almost spot on for where we are right now. This morning I saw a poll that said it would be 49-49 and 49-49. So that's about where we are right now, so we'll have to stay tuned.
Yeah, pretty close to that. Juan, last night we were digging through an article written by Eric Erickson saying, listen, I know this state inside and out, and some of the things that people are missing. He talked about on the ground, he actually talked about black farmers potentially being a big win for Perdue because he and now Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue were instrumental after Hurricane Michael trying to get relief for farmers as they were so desperate in the southern part of the state. And they talked about that may be one of the reasons that he could outperform Kelly Loeffler. What's your take on where we stand tonight?
Well, I just want to pick up on what Dana said. I think if you just look at the numbers, it's, clearly highly partisan. Republicans have stayed with the two Republican candidates. Democrats, though, especially black Democrats, have overperformed what they did in the November presidential general election. And this is really true, picking up on what you're talking about, Shannon. If you look at the so-called black belt across the middle of the state, which you go from Augusta across to Columbus, right in the middle of the state, those are heavily black counties, a lot of small farm communities that and it looks like those people have had a very strong reaction, especially to the idea that you could have the first black senator from the state of Georgia, Raphael Warnock. And from what we've seen of the numbers so far tonight, he has more of a substantial lead over Kelly Loeffler than Ossoff has over Perdue. So I would say that's the key in my mind. I mean, I look at those numbers that we've had so far, and it's not just blacks, but it's also the Latino community more strong in terms of support of the Democrats than they were in the general election.
Well, and our numbers for now, just to be clear, do show that David Perdue is still leading John Ossoff. It's very tight in both of these races, one Republican leading, one Democrat leading, and still about 4% of the vote we're told to come in. Katie, there had been a lot of talk about whether there would be a suppression somewhat of the GOP vote for people who were angry, thinking that these senators had not done enough to support President Trump and his challenges to the election there in Georgia. Do you think that was much of a factor?
Well, the Perdue campaign earlier in the night was very confident about the turnout and said that they felt that they were going to have a good night based on early turnout. Now, those numbers may have changed, and there has been this strange kind of trying to reconcile this idea that the presidential election was rigged, but people should still go out and vote regardless, even though their vote may not count or be disenfranchised. Now, President Trump was in Georgia last night trying to tell people that they should go out to vote, that they should overwhelm the system with enough voters to overcome what he called disenfranchisement and fraud. We'll have to see at the end of this if that was the case. But I think the bigger issue here is that the far left is gaining ground in places all across America. Arizona is one of them, but in Georgia in particular, this is supposed to be a reliably red state. And Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff are not Joe Manchin Democrats. They are far left California-style Democrats, and still these elections are this close. Now, we don't know the outcome yet, but the idea that the left was able to swoop into Georgia, get a number of new Democrats registered, and take these runoff races to this close of a margin against usual, typical Republicans in Georgia really says a lot about their organization, and the Republican Party is going to have to catch up and defend their turf. And I would say, looking at Texas in the future,
I'm really attached to
this bunch. I think that Baltimore-Tennessee game on Sunday should be a dandy. That rematch from last week between the Browns and the Steelers, that's Sunday night. Saturday night, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers go to Washington, D.C. to face Alex Smith. And Saturday afternoon, the Rams and the Seahawks. Those guys are rivals. They don't like each other very much. And that's a look at sports. Phil's back in a moment with a final check of the weather.
Breathe in the baby.
from, so you can find the
from Georgia. That hasn't happened in a long time, but they need them both to have the big national change.
But there's a lot of votes still outstanding in DeKalb County, and they could easily bring both of these Democrats on top in this overall contest.
Yes, the DeKalb County votes could, and I want to go there in a second, but I just want to also focus on the conversation you just had in Chatham County, right? So the chief executive tells you there are 3,000 votes still out there, right? So if you just look at what's happening, John Ossoff is getting 59% right there, Pastor Warnock getting 59% right there. Democrats tend to overperform their total number in these absentee votes, but let's just say it comes in about the same, right? So you're in this very close race right now. Pastor Warnock has a lead. John Ossoff is trying to come back. He's down 3,000 votes. As you do that right now, he could pick up 600. If it comes in like that, you can pick up 600 right there.
All right, look at this. David Perdue's lead has shrunk once again dramatically. The Republican David Perdue, his lead is now only 3,696 over the Democrat John Ossoff. The other Democratic candidate, RAPHAEL Warnock, his lead has expanded. His lead is now more than 31,381 over the Republican Kelly Loeffler. So the Democrats are doing better and better as more votes, John King, are coming in from DeKalb County and some of these other heavily Democratic counties around Atlanta.
And I'm told by our control room, the latest votes that came in were here in Fulton County. Again, it's up to 95%. So you say, oh, 95.
We're going to try to get to at least, some of the rest of it after 11 o'clock. That may have been, we just got a batch of about 12,000 votes in Fulton County. Trying to get clarification if that's the mail vote I've been describing to you, or if that's same-day vote. But what did that do to the statewide margin? It added about 6,000 votes there to the Warnock total. He now leads by his margin about 31,000 is Warnock's lead statewide. And John Ossoff is knocking on the door right now. He's within 3,696 votes of David Perdue with that update from Fulton County that just came in. And we're just kind of expanding these circles again so you can get a sense of the scale of it. That second bubble from the left is Fulton County. That's where we just got a big batch of votes. What you just saw happen in Fulton County, something on that scale is going to happen again. I don't know if it's going to be tonight or tomorrow morning, but that remaining bubble is going to be Democratic vote to some degree. We're not sure exactly which, but that should be Democratic vote. The DeKalb bubble starting to get a little bigger again. The remainder of that gigantic batch that came in and that really sort of reshuffled these races. Newton County, Cobb County, that's the biggest source of it right here. Zoom out here statewide. I didn't want to zoom out to the whole country. We've only got one state. And again, under 4,000 votes, 3,696. That's what Ossoff is chasing. Warnock right now is trying to build a lead in these remaining counties, especially in the Atlanta metro area, that Loeffler will not be able to catch with the scattering of what's left. I should just leave this thing up because this is the most important that we have right now.
And right now, Warnock would be outside the automatic recount.
Can we speak generically about what the requirements are for decision desks? And we have no contact with ours. They have no contact with us until and unless they make a call. Let's talk generically, however. A decision desk at a news organization makes a call when they and their algorithms have made a determination that of the remaining vote, it would not be enough to reverse a current trend, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if and I this is where I get very dicey because I'm afraid that if I say the wrong thing, they're gonna come out and arrest me.
That's why I'm asking generically what the process is.
But I think yes, I think so, and I think what Rachel just said though may be key here as well, just in terms of the threshold of 0.5%. The recount threshold that if you're within 0.5%, right, you can request the recount. So this one is sitting here. Well, now it's 0.8 of a point, but the other race right now is sitting at 50-50. So if it falls within that threshold, you've got the possibility of a recount. And I imagine that would factor into the decision to some degree.
Was once reserved for only the finest dress shirts, but is now available in Mike's Giza Dream Sheets.
I hope Mike Pence comes through for us, I have to tell you. I hope that our great vice president comes through for us. He's a great guy. Of course, if he doesn't come through, I won't like him quite as much.
What to do? Follow the Constitution or obey the president? The answer is clear. Run away!
Mike Pence.
The hydration they need with the fruit flavors they love, and 1 gram of sugar. Find creative
candidates, Senator David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. Yep, it was quite a night. Trump spoke for almost 90 minutes, and then he invited everyone on a scavenger hunt to find 12,000 more votes.
Sat down at a keyboard and wrote da ba da ba da 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 da. Now usually it's not moving. Oh yeah, you see, it has a human centipede.
Same thing. New York City positivity.
94% of the inmates on home confinement are monitored.
Least trust for quality and timeless protection.
If you haven't tried Botox for your chronic migraine, check with your doctor.
Until you... Therapy for all.
When language learning gets hard.
Make it.
At Sullivan Theater, Office Building in New York City, is Stephen Colbert.
Oh, hell. When you make a small mistake, strong again. Look at that arm.
What happened there? It was like halfway through, a hypnotist put him to sleep. We have made sleep.
America strong again. Cannot. The only way to turn this phone off is by getting a Phillips head screwdriver and taking the back.
Scholarships available. Apply today at church. And man who got up early to get the good seat at church, RAPHAEL Warnock, along with incumbent senator and stand-up bombing at the ski lodge, David Perdue, versus activist filmmaker and new hot doctor on Grey's Anatomy, John Ossoff. And do we have this? Is this in? And I'm being told the Late Show is now ready to project that we taped the show at 6 o'clock, and I have no idea who won.
Is 3 behind teachers, first responders, even transit workers. New York isn't the worst state, though. Michigan stands 44th in the country for vaccine distribution. Only 28% of the state's doses have been given out, inviting some harsh criticism. Tori Sachs with Michigan Rising Action wrote, Director Gordon should resign from the Biden transition team immediately to focus on distributing the vaccine to Michigan's most vulnerable. But other parts of the country are marching to a different beat. Regular guy David McMillan randomly got a Moderna shot at a D.C. grocery store when first responders missed their appointment. The district's Department of Health allowing vaccines to be given to anyone if they're about to expire. And a Northern California county broke all the rules when it rushed to give away 600 doses in just 2 hours after a freezer malfunctioned. In Florida, the rollout... What happens when one smart business owner talks to another?
Is your connection to the greatest shows on TV, the biggest movies.
Oh, and that's right, Mexico is paying for the wall. So they're coming up now, the caravans. Remember the caravans?
Oh my God, this is so sad.
Headache?
Real bad.
Sorry, man. All good. Cool.
Right.
The second one is the most important, to have more sex. That never happened either.
Aisha Hasmi in New York, thank you very much. And breaking tonight, with the spread and severity of COVID-19 pushing the state of California to the edge, a new order just out from the state public health director is forcing rationing of hospital care, things like elective surgeries. The state says the new health order is designed to help preserve hospital capacity to make sure that COVID and emergency care patients can get the care they need. All eyes turning to Congress ahead of tomorrow's Electoral College certification battle. Senator Marsha Blackburn is among those pledging to
MSNBC and streaming on Peacock.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by
Vote lead over the Republican Kelly Loeffler, 34,692 vote lead. RAPHAEL Warnock over Kelly Loeffler. The stakes here are really significant, really enormous. for the next few years as the Biden administration getting ready to take office. The balance of power right now in the United States Senate, 50 Republicans, 48 Democrats in the Democratic caucus, 2 independents who caucus with the Democrats. The 2 contests tonight will determine if the Democrats were to win both of them, and it's looking pretty good if you're a Democrat right now. If they were to win both of them, it would be 50-50 in the new administration. The new Vice President, Kamala Harris, is the president of the Senate. She would break the tie. The Democrats would be in the majority in the Senate. Chuck Schumer would be the majority leader. Mitch McConnell would be the minority leader. The stakes clearly are enormous, John King, as we're watching this. And the votes outstanding right now, only about 3% of the votes outstanding, 97% of the vote is in, but the votes outstanding pretty much in Democratic counties in areas where the Democrats have built up significant leads.
Yes, and the places where you're looking at Republican counties, they're at 93, 94, 95, 96. They tend to be smaller. So yes, there's some net gains for Republicans out there in those smaller counties, but what we have watched play out in the last 30 to 45 minutes is very indicative of what's so fascinating about this race. Why did the race just change in the last couple of minutes? Because of Newton County. Again, Newton County here, let me come back a minute, statewide. This circle around Atlanta, metropolitan Atlanta, the suburbs around it, this is one big giant suburb. Republicans traditionally much more competitive than we're seeing. In the presidential election, President Trump is toxic in the suburbs. And now we're watching in Georgia tonight, can the Democrats keep their support in the suburbs? Well, you're a little far out here from Atlanta, but in Newton County, you see what just happened. We just got up to 89% of the vote right here. Wolf, I just want to walk through the math because we've been talking throughout the night about, so you're at 94, 95%. Where does it matter when you bring in those final votes? Well, you just mentioned how close this race is now. This is what happened when we got more votes in from Newton County. So you got 99-82 for the Democrat, John Ossoff. Forgive me for changing your back, turning my back. That's 73%. And then you have 3,600 and 27%. And so you have a net gain there, 6,500 votes, bang, and John Ossoff comes back, and you saw a very similar dynamic just in Newton County in the other race as well. So what happens? John Ossoff was behind. He closes. He closes significantly, right? You're down close to 7,000 votes. Suddenly you're down 456 votes. And if you're Pastor Warnock, you add 6,000 votes to what is your lead now, and you're stretching it out. And so then you're saying, how many more of these are there, right? How many more places can you go where Democrats are going to see a net of hundreds, if not 1,000 or more, and in this case 6,000 or more? So you go through, that was in Newton, we're only up to 89%. So we still have 11%, so you're likely to see, again, Democrats are getting 58% on one, 57% rounded up, that's 58% on the other. So in the early votes that are being counted.
In my Father's house are many.
Each time we're getting an update from these bubbles, these 4 bubbles we've been talking about in particular in the Atlanta metro area, it has been adding to the Democrat, it's been adding to Warnock's lead, and it has been bringing Ossoff closer and closer statewide. So, I keep checking this to see if we're getting any more in. These are the biggest sources. This is 4 counties right here of outstanding vote. There are some other sources here. We mentioned earlier, I think just before the last break, we were talking about Coffee County, sort of a core Republican county, not that big, but a place where Republicans stood to benefit as more votes came in. Just about all the vote is now in Coffee County, so that helped the Republicans. But again, that was offset, more than offset, by what the Democrats gained as we started to get more and more of this Atlanta metro vote out. Houston County, still some there. Augusta, Richmond, still some there. Columbia County, still a little bit there. North Georgia, still some there. We've even got some, Coweta County is still a little bit to come right there. This could be Republican. So there are still some opportunities here for Republicans, but the biggest bubbles on the map, the biggest remaining bubbles on the map are in core Democratic areas right now.
Now, Steve, I have to ask you if we have any human intelligence on what to expect in terms of those remaining bubbles and where, whether people are going home or whether that work is continuing and whether they're giving any updates on when to expect it.
Yeah, trying to get some clarification on that. And this is why I keep checking this phone I have here, because I've been texting election officials in Fulton County. So I had been in contact with them today and prior to this election.
That we're going to have success in changing the results as they now stand. But this is something on principle I think I need to do. What are you hoping to accomplish tomorrow?
one of the things that the 12 of us who have come together to call for a commission that would be a 10-day audit of what has transpired in this election. Look at these disputed states and look at the allegations that are there on election fraud, voter fraud, the improper way mail-out ballots were done, and look at where states have gone outside of their constitutional duty, whether it's the state Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and look at where they're outside of state laws. You know, Shannon, we had some of your local election administrators changing the rules of the election, and they were saying, well, we did it because of COVID. Well, you can't do that. And the Constitution, our U.S. Constitution, is explicit. You give the authority of time, place, and manner of elections to your state legislature. They're the ones that are to set those rules. And we have had issues. So preserving one person, one vote, making certain all legal votes are counted, illegal votes are cast out, and having a commission to settle this, we think is the appropriate step, because we have spent the past 4 years hearing the Democrats say, illegitimate election, illegitimate president. We've had the Russia hoax. We have had riots in the streets. We have had impeachment. We've had all these things. It's not good for the country.
Sling Watch Party is live TV together from anywhere. Get the best of
plan. Yesterday, he announced that he wants dentists to help with COVID-19 vaccinations.
The stronger,
named Lou Dobbs.
We're 8 weeks from the election, and we still don't have verifiable, tangible support for the crimes that everyone knows were committed. That is, defrauding other citizens who voted with fraudulent votes. We know that's the case in Nevada. We know it's the case in Pennsylvania and a number of other states, but we have had a devil of a time finding actual proof.
Yeah, right. Everybody knows crimes are committed. We just can't find actual proof. But that...
On a ballot in the U.S. Senate race, Claire McCaskill. And there he is. Lawrence O'Donnell is with us. I'm going to skip the privilege of our former Senator Lawrence just to hit you with a question I'm getting hit with tonight. I believe I know the answer, but I want to hear your explanation. In a 50-50 theoretical pie-in-the-sky 50-50 U.S. Senate, who gets to be majority leader? Who's determined to be minority leader?
Well, that would go to Chuck Schumer, because the new vice president would break the tie in the 50-50 Senate.
Giving the Democrats, in effect, 51-50.
That's what this is all about tonight, is getting the Democrats to 50 in the Senate. Kamala Harris gets them to 51 with that tie-breaking vote. That's how you get Chuck Schumer as majority leader. And that's how you get all Democrats as the chairs of the committees that would be running the confirmation hearings on the Biden cabinet. Mm-hmm. And that will be a very different world than what would happen if those were all run by Republicans.
You wouldn't believe how many people have texted me with that question, and that underscored to me that we have done a less than stellar job in explaining that in advance. Claire McCaskill, I want to take a measurement of your level of optimism as we go into this hour, watching these numbers fluctuate and knowing that this is in a dynamic environment, a toxic political environment, that any result other than 2-0 for the GOP in Georgia tonight was likely to be attacked as being fraudulent.
Well, if the Democrats are somehow ginning this up to win by fraudulent means, why am I sitting on the edge of my seat and chewing my fingernails? It would seem if we were going to do this, we could do it a lot easier than this. Obviously, that is the president doing what he does best, lie. he's lying, and the people in the Senate who are going to help him tomorrow are lying. Now, here's a scenario that is very interesting. It appears to me that Kelly Loeffler will lose her Senate seat tonight, and it should probably be declared by tomorrow afternoon. And guess who is supposed to be the person objecting to the certification of the Georgia votes tomorrow? None other than Kelly Loeffler. So imagine her job tomorrow, having lost the Senate race, which it appears that she is going to do. And then this is a woman who has been programmed in this campaign. Her answers have been clearly, scripted. She's been very kind of focused on socialism, and I'm conservative, and Marjorie Greene, the QAnon congresswoman, is my best friend, and I want to get to the right of QAnon. So now she is going to have to go and be eloquent, explaining why the votes in her state shouldn't be counted after the voters in her state have rejected her. This is an interesting moment in history.
Lawrence O'Donnell, same question.
Well, tomorrow, what we're going to see is even more of a circus than it would have been without this election happening tonight. Especially if you get 2 Democratic wins tonight, that is going to take a lot of the energy out of what the Chaos Committee is trying to do tomorrow in the Senate. There's also a possibility tonight. There is a possibility that we will get 1 Democratic win out of Georgia and 1 Republican win. Now, if that happens, Donald Trump will be put in the position of saying the Democratic win was fraudulent and the Republican win was not in votes conducted on the very same day with the very same voters. But as we sit here tonight, it still looks better for the 2 Democrats at this hour than it looks for the Republicans at this hour in Georgia, with, as Steve says, so many votes still to come in from Democratic-leaning precincts.
But Lauren? This whole questioning of the election results has, by definition, involved people newly reelected or elected to their offices saying, look, my position on the ballot was fine. That was all on the up and up. It was the top line of the ballot where the fraud took place.
Yeah, the very same ballot that they were all on, they're going to be challenging tomorrow. But Brian, the drama that we're seeing tonight is so much more important than anything that we're going to see tomorrow. And to consider Raphael Warnock's position with us tonight. The first time he was on my show, I had to learn what his name was about 2 or 3 days before he was on my show. John Ossoff, we've known about. He's run for Congress in Georgia before. He's an experienced candidate. This is Raphael Warnock's first time as a candidate for anything, and he's running statewide in Georgia, and he's running right now at this moment ahead of a Republican incumbent senator. This is a star tonight in Democratic Party politics. No matter how this turns out, you will probably, if you're on the Warnock fundraising email list, you'll probably be hearing from him for the next 2 years, because he's going to be running for this seat 2 years from now if he wins it, because it's to fill what's left of a 2-year term. He'll have to run for re-election in 2 years. If he doesn't win tonight, he's obviously the person Chuck Schumer and Democrats will want to run for this seat 2 years from now. But he looks like he's in a strong position to be winning this seat tonight as of where the votes stand right now.
And
House leadership was able to have armed security with him on that ball field. You had Antifa show up outside of Josh Hawley's home and not just threaten him, but his wife and newborn child inside. So there are some serious considerations that lawmakers like Congresswoman Boebert, they have to undertake.
The Supreme Court in D.C. versus Heller affirmed the right to keep and bear arms, though not without limits. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito recently said cities like New York have tried to work around that landmark ruling.
The city makes it very inconvenient for a law-abiding resident to get a license to keep a gun in the home for self-defense.
Gun rights advocates say they've seen similar issues in D.C.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll have much more coming up. The drama continues in Georgia.
Some of my best memories growing up were cooking with Mom. She always said,
And that is a big incursion into the Republican red South that I know Mitch McConnell is worrying about tonight, along with the other things he's worrying about tonight.
To Claire McCaskill, to Lawrence O'Donnell, our thanks. A break in our coverage. As you've been watching, Steve Kornacki remains at his post at the big board in constant and fluid consultation with the aforementioned Adam. The numbers are changing. We're on top of it. We will be right back with the very latest.
Will you sell us your car today?
I don't know.
Collect them all in our vagina-themed Meanwhile sub-segment, Vaginewhile.
Of that song, that's a hit or whatever. And because he has had like 27 #1 radio hits, and he's been on The Voice for 20.
After game night finds up to half off. Start the new year and save.
The explosion, that's what I call the COVID ambush. We've learned nothing. So now there's a second strain, and it came from the UK again. And again.
I've appreciated hearing from our witnesses today and getting their insight on how the pandemic is affecting.
This is the sound of Fasenra. Ask your doctor about Fasenra. If you can't afford your medication, AstraZeneca may be able to help.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Just like you, I had problems sleeping.
Wonderful pistachios are available without any shells. That's all we're saying.
Oh, really?